Welcome to your daily podcast. Brought to you by Khmer Times.
Good evening, listeners. This is your host, Amy. Thank you for tuning in the daily podcast. Today, we're bringing you a historical feature on an interesting topic you will enjoy before your sleep. One famous quote by famous French author Jean-Baptiste Duvaux, the one he uttered on his deathbed, was "Death is a law, not a punishment." However, an attestation found at a pagoda in Phnom Penh has proved that the Khmer Rouge, who ruled Cambodia ruthlessly from 1975 to 1979, could even punish those already dead. In addition to claiming millions of innocent lives and causing tremendous destruction. For many, this evidence deserves more attention so that the public can understand more about the consequences of war. In the heart of Phnom Penh, just across from the Independence Monument, is Wat Langka, one of the 5 ancient Buddhist monasteries in Phnom Penh. Inside the pagoda's compound, behind the main temple, is a small room. The room contains rows of wooden cabinets. And inside these cabinets are hundreds of urns, made in different styles and shapes, along with other containers filled with human cremains. In Cambodia, where more than 90% of the population follows Buddhism, it is not unusual to find urns in the stupas or temples at Buddhist pagodas. People believe the monasteries are the best place for the deceased to rest. However, in real life, the most common practice among people is to keep the cremains of their loved ones at home for worship or to receive the feeling of being close to them. The existence of so many urns and cremains in the same room at Wat Langka reveals a tragic story. Going back 48 years, when the Khmer Rouge entered Phnom Penh on Thursday, April 17, 1975, it was still Khmer New Year, and offerings for the new year were still out in front of many people's homes. The gunshots and explosions that had been heard for days were silent. The sun shone brightly on Phnom Penh, but few seemed to notice that the city, and soon the rest of the country, was about to enter its darkest phase. That day, Khmer Rouge forces overthrew General Lon Nol's government and took control of Phnom Penh, launching a forced mass eviction of its residents to the countryside, a march that claimed countless lives and led survivors to a life of forced labor and fear under the watchful eye of the Angkar, or Democratic Kampuchea. While the city residents were being forced to leave their homes, some were able to bring some supplies with them for the journey, while many departed with barely anything but the clothes on their backs. However, some still thought about the cremains of their loved ones who had passed away. They knew for certain that they would not be able to bring the urns with them on the journey, as the Khmer Rouge were lying to them that they would be returning in just 3 days. Some of the people who lived near Wat Langka somehow decided to hide their loved ones' urns in a brick alcove behind the main hall of the pagoda. They promised to return to bring them back home when the country was at peace again. In reality, most of them did not return to bring them home. What the Khmer Rouge did to Cambodia and its people, with a foolish dream of creating an agrarian utopia and a classless society, led to a genocidal regime, which would later become what the country became infamous for. While Democratic Kampuchea lasted for 3 years, 8 months, and 20 days. To the ones who had lived through it, the period felt like an eternity, as they were subjected to forced labor, starvation, a lack of medication, and the fear of being executed without trial even for a minor mistake. All because they were intellectuals. After the fall of the Khmer Rouge in 1979, Buddhism was revived, and the monks returned to Langka Pagoda. The urns were still in the same place, and more urns were added to the collection as the monks in the pagoda used the alcove as a place to safekeep valuable urns made of silver or bronze. Venerable Awa Sarith, first deputy chief monk of Langka Pagoda, said,
"It was a grave tragedy even for the dead. They were not able to reunite with their families. We know for sure that those who did not come for their urns must have died.
Then, in 2014, Yuk Chang, the director of the Documentation Center of Cambodia, entered the monkhood for a short time to pay tribute to the spirit of his sister, who had just passed away. While staying at the pagoda, he discovered a passage behind a gigantic Buddha statue, which led to the alcove, and was shocked at what he discovered. He said,
"For me, it is a grim sight. A sad story was behind each one of them."
He discovered 464 urns. Some were in glass boxes with images of the deceased, while others were wrapped in deteriorating white cloth and made of stone, clay, metal and bronze. Some featured labels with the deceased's name and date of death, while others had a message or other information. One urn belonged to a 1-year-old, which had a picture of her smiling on it. It is possible to identify the ethnicity and economic status of the family of the deceased by looking at these urns. The Khmer families used the traditional urns with a pointy lid known as a koad, while the Chinese and Vietnamese put the cremains in ceramic jars. Those made from precious materials, like gold and silver, with beautiful quark or decorative patterns must have belonged to the wealthy, while some are simply wrapped with a piece of cloth and most likely belong to the poor. One of the urns is even a wine glass. For those known to have died in the mid-70s, it is possible that they were killed in the bombardment of Phnom Penh during the battles between the Lon Nol Army and the Khmer Rouge Force. Yuk later instructed his team to document and photograph all of the urns. After the pagoda spread information about the discovery, a handful of people claimed urns. Nonetheless, 400 still remain. After being rediscovered, USAID and U.S. Navy builders working on community construction projects throughout the country offered to construct 8 cabinets for the urns. They were in rooms where the cremains rest today. Historian Sambo Manara said these unclaimed urns are a testimony to how merciless and ferocious the Khmer Rouge could be, and thus should be revealed to the world.
No thanks to the Khmer Rouge, hundreds of thousands of innocent people died even without a grave, and many families cannot find the remains of their loved ones. But the urns at Wat Lanka are unspeakable evidence, literally and metaphorically, of an atrocity committed against the city's people. For me, they should be treated as national heritages.
Every year during Chum Ben, the biggest religious holiday in Cambodia, the Documentation Center of Cambodia always organizes a ceremony to pay tribute to the nearly 2 million people who lost their lives during the Khmer Rouge regime. In the same season, the center also asks monks to give blessings to those whose cremains are in the urns at Lanka Pagoda, hoping that their souls now rest in peace. For Yuk, he can only hope that more urns will be reunited with their families one day.
Even though our country has lost so much and no words or deeds can help us recover from the horrors of this history, we are compelled by the spirit of creation and our shared humanity to move forward. In the wake of inhumanity, we all have the potential for personal, community, and national renewal.
Yuk believes that renewal cannot begin with ignorance of the past. He said,
"By taking the time to study the past through survivor stories and scholarly research, we can begin to understand how connected we are with our ancestors and how to honor their memory. Through education, we can pay tribute to genocide victims and establish a form of justice that can never be diluted by time. I hope, on this occasion of the upcoming Chum Ben, we make this commitment to our ancestors. Our commitment to remembering the past and the struggles of our ancestors will ensure all Cambodians have a firm footing for a better society in the future."
That's the end of our podcast for tonight. This is your host, Amy. Good night, and see you next week.